Hello and welcome to the session of Advanced Performance Management. My name is Nidhish Singh. I'm working in JP Morgan as Vice President and heading the transformation initiatives. I'm member of ACCA, CISI, Institute of Directors, Institute of Public Accountant Australia, and also a board member of EDIIC. Today, I'm going to walk through and discuss about advanced performance management. Before that, congratulations for having made so far, and you're not too far from completing all your papers. Just 2 more papers and you will be ACCA affiliate or member. So today we are going to talk about key aspects of advanced performance management and some of the models which are important part of this paper. So before moving to the models of advanced performance management, let's understand what it constitutes, what it means, and what is so important. We often hear that what is measured is get done. And why it is so? Because when we measure something, if the organization focuses on the financial performance versus the ethical obligation or the corporate responsibility, it starts to perform better in that direction because people start to focus on those areas. And that's the benefit of measuring a particular area or domain or the field in terms of the performance. Because no matter how many times we repeat that culture is important, employee centricity, client centricity is important, everyone should value ethics, but if we don't focus on those aspects when it comes to performance evaluation, performance measurement, then people are not going to pay as much attention. And that's why these areas are measured by organizations when it comes to performance evaluation or quarterly or monthly evaluations of the entire company. Now, that leads us to the importance of the paper Advanced Performance Management, because as the business leader, one should know that right criteria, right issues, and right factors should be focused and measured. Just because we measure something, it doesn't mean that it is going to lead us to the right destination. Because what we measure is also important. We need to set the right goal in perspective, right direction, and then we need to break down the goal and mission into small doable tasks, and we need to start measuring that. Once we measure the right thing, only then we achieve the objective, we reach the destination of the organization. So with that, I would like to introduce a couple of models and tools under APM paper. So starting with, let's say, if we need to talk about the integration of the business model, integration of the business values, objective, and performance goal, how the organization should be doing that, how organization can integrate different component, different performance measurement criteria, etc. So here there are a couple of models that we can talk about this. So McKinsey 7S model, that comes on the top of the list. McKinsey is a well-known consulting firm, and it has come up with a model called 7S. So here we can see this large structure. There are 7S starting with strategy, structure, system, style, staff, skill, and shared value. Something to note here, system, structure, and strategy, the top 3, these are considered hard S. And the other 4, skill, shared values, style, and staff, are considered the soft ones. Why this is? That, and why we need to split between hard and soft S. And the reason is, the hard one is something that you can clearly observe from the document, the system, and something which is explicit from the documents, right? You can feel it, you can see that, you can You can read in the document, you can read in the policy and the compliance documents. So for example, structure. Structure is one of the hard S of the business behavior, because you can clearly see what kind of structure organization is following. Is that vertical or the horizontal? Many organizations are nowadays trying to become horizontal because the technology enables that kind of a structure, and also people want to talk to their leaders and they don't want to go through the hierarchy to share their ideas and thoughts. So a vertical organization is no more as relevant as it was some 40 years ago. Secondly, strategy. Strategy can be felt. It is very much obvious what a strategy an organization is following. So another hard is, and finally system, because once structure and strategy is understood, system can be very obvious. Some organizations are very technologically advanced, some are manual, some are based on cloud, etc. Right? Now, these hard skills, hard elements actually are easily quantified and defined because these are easy to observe, right? And deal with facts and rules. Nevertheless, the soft ones, soft elements are not so much tangible, palpable, observable, and often difficult to quantify and notice, at least in the first look. So these soft elements are four: style, how people work, what is the way of doing things, corporate culture, how people talk to each other. These are the style. Some are very informal, some are formal, right? Shared values are the guiding beliefs of people in the organizations. So values are guiding beliefs because if an organization is ethically responsible, it takes deep interest in the corporate social responsibility. If organization is proactive to control the pollution, this reflects the shared values. Do they take the responsibility? Do they accept the failure? Do they take the responsibility and correct the failures and rectify their mistakes? So that reflects the shared value. Staff are the people in the organization who are working and providing their skill set and labor. So again, one of the most tangible one to observe. Skill. Skill refer to those things that the organization does well. So expertise, competency, professionalism, their critical success factor comes from the skill. So this is a soft element. We cannot directly quantify, measure it, but this is essential for any organization. This is the fundamental for any organizational strategy, growth, and their well-being. So skill is another soft one. So what we have noticed so far, 3 hard elements and 4 soft elements that make 7 A's, which are reflecting how organizations are integrated, how organizations are connected to each other. Okay, so that's why it is important. All elements, whether hard or soft, must pull in the same direction of the organization to be effective. So just like we have 7 colors, right? Newton had found out that there are 7 colors in white color, right? And similarly, there are 7 S here. If all 7 S, all the 7 elements do not go in one single direction, if they start to go in 7 different directions, organization will be rift apart. Organization cannot move in one direction, or it will be just is scattered all over the place. That's why it is important that staff, skills, all this may or may not be fantastic, but what is the role of the leader? To pull all the 7 S in one single direction. Because it doesn't matter if you have 7 great horses and all of the horses are going in different directions. Your chariot cannot move properly, or it can just break. But if the horses are not the best, not the strongest one, not the smartest one, but if they're aligned in one single direction, if they have a clear leadership, clear vision to follow, then the chariot will move. So simply, all elements need to be aligned and need to go in one single direction. Here is a quick case study from Daimler-Benz, the German car manufacturer best known for its Mercedes premium brand. So this was merged with a company called Chrysler, a volume car manufacturer, and volume car manufacturer because the focus of Chrysler was not to build the best car, but high volume car. Because with more volume, you often get the market muscle, big share, and you also reduce the cost. So become more competitive. Anyway, so Daimler Chrysler become the world's largest car manufacturer. Now we need to understand that what happened after the merger. Okay, so merger is generally the marriage of equals, marriage of the same culture and the same people, but in practice, it was a different one. In practice, it was a takeover by Daimler. Which one? The Benz. So in 1998, the Benz took over Chrysler. So it was not really a merger, it was a takeover. So by March 2001, the share price had almost in 2.5 years fallen by actually fallen by 40%, which was a drastic reduction in the value. Now, number of reasons were found out why it happened, why the performance was so poor, and nothing to be surprised. Here we got 7S. So if you apply 7S in this context, you will find out that one was American company, which one? Chrysler. And Benz was the German company. Their culture, the value, and the way of doing things were quite different. So if the way of doing things are different, what do we call them? So if the style is different, so that means way of doing things are different. So style is quite different. That is well understood. What else? Because there are two different country, two different cultures. Apart from this, what else are significantly different? Their strategy. As we have noticed at the start of this discussion, that one was focused on making premium car, but another one was on volume. So their strategy, their inherent goal were different. So strategy, so speciality versus volume. Next one, the new group did not properly exploit economies of scale, such as sharing components, right? And this often happens not only in the Chrysler versus Benz. It often happens that this two company merges and two company decide to work together, but there are some bureaucratic limitations. It could be from various reasons. It could be because of the bureaucracy, or it could be resistance of employee, or maybe incompatible systems. So there could be incompatibility in the system. What else? Then we just lack of investment to align the two systems, because often you need to invest at the start to align the systems. Right? So because of all this, the two organizations could not merge properly and could not benefit from each other. And if Bench had better system, better technology, better quality assurance components, the Chrysler could not benefit from the Bench superior technology. So the merger did not integrate the system of the two. System could not be integrated. So far we have found out 3 A's: system, strategy, and style. Do you know what they are? Style is soft, strategy is hard, and system is also hard. Okay, so we can just note down whatever we find between soft and hard. Productivity and efficiency at Chrysler was far lower than industry norms. That's interesting because Chrysler was focusing on volume. One might think that Chrysler must be more productive and efficient because it is trying to produce at mass scale. So why the productivity and efficiency is lower and volume is not manufactured to the level expected at Chrysler? And that was because in 2000, each vehicle took Chrysler around 40 hours, whereas only 20 hours for the competitors. It's 2x, which is massive. In addition, purchasing was inefficient and fixed costs were too high for the size of the company. So Chrysler performance was much weaker than Daimler had realized going into the deal. So they were Pandora's box. After the merger and after the actual takeover, in reality, Daimler realized that Chrysler is not the bird that they were expecting. It is not really the golden bird that Daimler think Chrysler is, because there was inefficiency, there were inadequate technology, there were cultural issues, so many things. Moving on. Ultimately, Chrysler merger failed to produce the transatlantic automotive powerhouse. Why? Because at the start of such takeover and merger, we always expect that there will be immense value creation. The value creation, synergy, etc. must be there. So let's say we needed to have A, synergy, B, economies of scale, third, unlocking value. Because often what happens that when two organizations merge together, they are not just 1 plus 1. They are not just 1 plus 1. They are in fact 11. That is the meaning of synergy. Economies of scale, because if two big companies are merging, they will have their supplier integrated, their system, technology, everything will integrate. They will benefit from each other's advanced technology and the ideas and the expertise. So it could have created an economy of scale and even scope. In fact, both. It could have served much bigger market, much more varieties at bigger scale, which did not happen. Unlocking values. Again, when two great organizations merge together, when they marry together, they unlock the value which was not possible to do so. Because they have more capital, more muscle, more market share, better, more reputation and branding, the entire system, the network, everything. Unfortunately, even that did not happen. So we do not have unlocking value. So finally, they were taken over. Chrysler was sold to private equity, and in December 2008, Chrysler received a 4 billion loan from the US government to state of bankruptcy. Still, it could not survive. And finally, in April 2009, it had to file for bankruptcy. So, a massive failure of at least 4S. We have noticed style, structure, system, and finally their value. So this kind of analysis of the 7A's can help us understand if certain merger, takeover, or business restructuring are successful or not, and if two organizations which are merged going in the right direction or not, or are they going into still two different directions. Of course, there was some Pandora box in this organization and in this synergy because the takeover acquirer did not know what is going on inside the company they are taking over. Now, subsequently, Fiat Chrysler, there was another merger between Chrysler and Fiat subsequently, and in May 2014, a new group, Fiat Chrysler Automobile, was established with the two main operating subsidiaries. Okay, the question remains that after the massive and historical failure of Daimler and Chrysler, will Fiat Chrysler survive? Now, as the researcher, scholar, or the student of advanced performance management, we can Google, we can find out some history on Fiat and Chrysler merger or takeover maybe. We need to find out the cultural differences between Fiat and Chrysler. Not only cultural difference, also style difference. Okay, so style, staff, what kind of expertise their staff have, what kind of value they are expected to bring. So we can do the analytics on all 7S just like we did, or maybe fewer than 7S, but we need to find out as many S as possible between the two organizations. See, are they compatible? Are they going to create value? And if they are way apart at 180-degree opposite lines, then the future of Fiat Chrysler may not be different from Daimler Chrysler. So 7S is a great tool to analyze such things. Now, the question is, we have done a great analytics, but what it means from performance or advanced performance management perspective. We should always ask such question at the end of analysis, just to be on the track for this paper and get a good marks. So outcome of this should be that after the merger, organizations should consider if 7S are aligned to how to align each of 7S by using right performance measures. And thirdly, we have suppose chosen right performance measure to assess whether 7S are aligned to each other or not. But set right objective to align 7S of two organization. And how to do that? Hold leaders accountable for this. Otherwise, it will not be known who is going to do what and whose responsibility is to maybe align the systems and technology or align the strategy. This should be identified, any gaps. Then there should be a discussion on how to align the system, staff, skill, strategy, goals, and objective. And then finally, we need to allocate who should be doing what and what is the timeline. With that, there will be a direction for both the organization to follow. All the 7S or 7 horses will not go in 7 directions. They will be moving into one single direction. After Friedrich Chrysler, we have another great model called value chain. So this is a value chain analysis, and it's one of the famous model to understand the uniqueness and the value creation by any organization. So let's understand this. What insight it brings. So value chain, as the name says here, it is a sophisticated model for business integration. It talks about the integration of the business. How does it do that? Because it has broadly defined 10 components or 10 departments of the organization, and it says that, and divides them between primary and secondary activities. So 10 different department, different functions of the organization, again broadly defined because there could be many more, but the theme is, the idea is that the different functions and departments of the organization should be defined and split between primary and secondary. And the concept is that any customer or the client is paying to the organization for the value creation. Actually, the organization will benefit only when it will create value, because the client or customer will pay for the cost or the service for 10 department. So 5 primary, 5 secondary, they will pay for 10 department. But the organization will not make profit if the value creation from the work of 10 department is not more than the cost. And we'll see that with a pictorial analysis in few minutes. So the value chain, a more sophisticated model to see how organizations can create value, way in which its business activities are organized. Business activities are not the same as business functions. Okay, so functions are familiar departments of a business, and activities are what actually goes on. So HR function, for example, can have payroll, can have recruitment, selection, interview, but after all, they are activities. All the recruitment, selection, payroll, various other initiative of the HR, they are the activities. They are not functions. So HR as a department is considered the function. The activity can be numerous, company to company, organization to organization, it can vary. Hence, we need to differentiate between the function and activities. Activities incur cost and in combination with other activities provides a product which earns revenue. We all know that. So various activity of one department or one function can be sold in the market and it can earn revenue. Okay. So moving on, this value chain was, or value model was created by author called Michael Porter. He has been proponent of various great models, and this one is again from him. So the value activities of the firm can be divided into 9 types and then analyzed into value chain. So let's look into the example. So activity, primary activities are directly related to production, sales, marketing, delivery, and service. So 5 primary activities: inbound logistic, operation, outbound logistic, marketing and sales, and after sales services. So let's look into one example of how we can put this into perspective, clearing this. So just to give you a glimpse of how the value chain as a model look, and then it will be easy to understand in the chapter. Not a great drawing, but still. One, two, three, and 4. So you have 5 departments, and here you have some support departments. So support activity, and this is primary activity. And what is this then? This is actually profit. So let's understand this intuitively in a logical manner, why this model is such a great one. So let's put a name to this: outbound logistics inbound logistic process. So this will convert the input into a product. Then client and customer service, sales and marketing. So altogether, the primary activities we will see in the PDF in actually printed manner, but all these primary activities are considered to be client, customer, or external vendor focused. These are the activities which are focusing on the external party, external client, and the customers. However, the support activity, or we can also call it secondary activity, so what they do, they are depicted like this. So HR, IT, and vendor and purchasing, and finally admin. So these processes are supposed to, this is the secondary activity, they are not interacting with the client, customer, or supplier on regular basis at least, because they serve to set the rules of internal policy, process, behaviors, what should be the IT infrastructure or the systems, and what price the vendor should be supplying the good to us, how much organization can afford to pay to the suppliers and vendors, etc. And that will be on the policy setting level, not on day-to-day buying and selling. It will be more on the policy setting basis to get an agreement with the vendors or the supplier, to agree the prices as a matter of policy. But on day-to-day basis, they do not interact with the vendors or supplier. They do the primary activity people. Those who are involved in the primary activity, these people who are part of the primary activity, they are dealing with the external suppliers. Hence, their role is to set up the right tone, set up the right process. And primary activity people need to acquire the business, keep the client happy, customer happy, make the product and the services visible in the market, advertise, marketing, selling, and interacting with the suppliers, setting up the right logistics so that the goods and the input materials come to the organization at right time, at the right price, and the right cost, and there's no wastage. All these things are taken care of by primary activity and primary teams. So they support all these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all these 5 teams to deliver value. They provide the right environment, conducive environment. They support the primary activity. All these secondary people are supporting the primary team to complete their functions and the business. And the primary ones are facing the business actually. They are facing the external market and the competition. They are delivering the product and services to the client and their customers. Now, why this value chain? It still seems quite logical, but basic. We all know this. But the value or the benefit of this model is that it says that any client will pay for service or product at this level. So this is the entire pentagon is paid by client or customer. But organization has to really create the value. And how the value is created is organization has to efficiently manage all the maybe 4 and 5, 9 services or 9 different teams to actually create the value for entire pentagon. So though all the 9 teams are related to this much area, but they need to create the value for entire this area, because if they will not create the value beyond this rectangle, basically there will be no value creation. There will be no triangle like this, because all the team together need to create the value more than the cost, because this rectangle represents the cost, but the team together need to create all the 5 sides a larger value, so that when the cost is paid for, still organization has some value made. So together they have to create more value than the cost that they consume. They need to justify their business model by creating more value beyond the cost that they are incurring, and that's the meaning of the value chain. Now, how it is done, some of the successful way how more value can be done. So this triangle should be larger. Maybe some organization will create this kind of triangle, or some will go even larger to create the triangles, and that depends as to how the value system is built. Are all the teams uniquely collaborating to each other? How is the support between the different functions and departments within the secondary? How secondary and primary are working together? And how unique their collaboration, coordination, their team, their value proposition is. So better they function together, the bigger value they will create, and hence organization, after paying for the cost, will have more value left for the shareholders. So that's the benefit of this, and the message and the meaning of this value chain model is. So we'll go back to the chapter and the PDF. So back here, inbound logistic, what it covers: receiving, handling, and storing inputs to the production system. Operations, so one that prepares the goods. Productions, so we can call it production as well. So operations, that converts the resources into product. So for example, a factory that produces sugar, so it will get the sugar cane and converts them into sugar. So that's the operation department. Okay. Outbound logistics, they will supply the goods. They will ensure that goods are offloaded to the system or to the truck or the carrier and sent to the customer. Marketing and sales and after sales services. So after sales services are client service centers, customer care centers. So they are after sales service. And marketing and sales, those who are advertising the greatness of the product and services, those who are responsible for the best ad on the TV or on the Facebook or in LinkedIn, Instagram, etc. So they are the marketing and sales team. Again, they are part of the primary and core activities. Moving on, support activity that we have seen earlier, the secondary activities, they are purchased input, human resource, technology, infrastructure, etc. to support the primary activity. They are also called admin. So procurement, they are not responsible, as I said earlier, for day-to-day buying, but they acquire the resource input to the primary activity, easy purchase of materials, subcomponents, equipments. Technology development, human resource management, for infrastructure, self-explanatory. Now, how that triangle for the value is created? That's the question. And linkages, this one is highlighting the process of creating value. So more and more linkages and the collaboration or unique relationship exist between the primary and secondary activity, or between all the activity within the organizations. That is called linkages. So linkage means what? If HR and finance working in collaboration, they understand each other's needs and the requirement, they come up with the right mindset and approach to work together, that's a great link, that's a great relationship. Similarly, the firm infrastructure and the procurement, they need to work in cohesive manner. And finally, or not finally, but there are many such examples, that operation team who are responsible for, suppose, manufacturing a camera, and there are some regular defect found out in one of the lens of the camera. So after sales services is giving that message and feedback to operations. Operation takes that seriously and send that to research and development team to find out why it is happening, after, of course, doing all the internal research. So that is a great example of solving the problems, and they are working in sync. They are working in a very cohesive manner that will solve the problems at operations level, and after sales services will have good time and they can satisfy the customer need and requirements. That will give a positive message in the market, and it will be good for the branding of the organization and its product. Hence, if there is a great linkage and great teamwork between all the different departments, there will be value creation. So activities in the value chain affect one another, as we discussed earlier. Operations is manufacturing something, but their quality will also be dependent on what kind of product has been designed, how the factory is built, so many different factors, what kind of input is coming from the supplier. All these factors are important for manufacturing a good product. But if operation department is not serious, if production is not serious about the customer complaint, then after sales cannot do much. In fact, they can escalate to the CEO and managing director and senior leadership, but again, it is not the best situation. In that circumstances, what will happen? Competitors will get the advantage. They'll be able to serve the customers better and finally win the business. Linkages require coordination. So we discussed that coordination, collaboration are the great spirit of teamwork, and that reflects deeper linkages within the different functions. Value system. So what is the value system? Because when we look at one value chain, which we have described above here, the value chain, when we look at that pentagon in silos, and when we look at one pentagon as one organization's value chain, it is still not the full story. The full story comes when you look into value system. And what do I mean by value system is this. Let me make two or three little value chain. So this is an example of potential value chain, and let me explain how it works. So what happens is, this we know is HR, then infrastructure, then could be admin or procurement here. They are the support team, secondary team or support team. And this is our primary activity. So, and this is profit. Imagine a situation when this represents Dell. We all know Dell is a virtual organization. It takes the order from the customers, and instantly, within few minutes, all the order goes to the respective suppliers to get the component. Supplier, they work on a just-in-time basis. They start sending the goods and the components to Dell, and their engineers who are on duty in different shifts, they will start to assemble the goods, and within a day, they will start to courier and send it across to the customers. That way, Dell do not maintain the storage, warehouses, or large inventory, so on and so on and forth. And they don't have to have a large setup and establishment. So they work in a very virtual basis. That also reduces their cost and the expenses. Now, with that model in mind, if Dell has to operate efficiently, what it needs? So again, here we have, primary activity. So here it has a primary activity and secondary. Again, primary and secondary activity. So what happens practically is, that any organization which is dependent on its supplier, because this is, to remember, outbound activity. This is my outbound activity. What does it do? The outbound activities, sorry, this one is in fact should be considered inbound. Because it is dependent on others for the supply. So it needs the supply from these suppliers. So this is supplier value chain. Supplier value chain. So this guy, Dell, they are dependent on the supplier, these two suppliers, for their input. So suppose this supplier value chain, this is Intel. Intel is supposed to supply the chip, processor, etc. And then there is another semiconductor supplier. They also need to supply the motherboard, etc. And they need to, and Intel need to supply the chips or microprocessors. So Dell can only work efficiently when these two teams work efficiently, when their value chain is working properly and their value chain is aligned to the Dell's value chain. So what needs to happen? The supplier 1 and supplier 2 has to be also very, very efficient and effective in their approach. So what they need to do? So supplier will also have their inbound and outbound logistic. So suppliers outbound logistic should be effectively linked and in collaboration with the Dell's inbound, because Dell's inbound means Dell needs to get a supply from the supplier. Supplier outbound needs to interact with the Dell's inbound, because supplier supply is the input for Dell. So Intel will send the chip or microprocessor which will be required by Dell, and the Dell will use that as an input. Similarly, the semiconductor supplier, the one that will send the motherboard, etc., they need to have their outbound logistic efficiently linked with the inbound logistic of Dell. Only then things will work efficiently. Otherwise, there will be constant delay and Dell's brand will be destroyed. So now we see this value chain, third value chain, is highly dependent on the value chain of 2 and 1. So they, in a way, become part of a value system. Similarly, Dell as a company need to supply their product. What is their product? Laptop or computers. So they need to supply to their client and customers. So maybe one is hospital, another one is airport, or maybe the government bodies. If Dell do not supply the product or the laptop computer on time as inbound logistic to their client and customers here, which are number 4 and number 5 organizations, what will happen? These two, 4 and 5, will start to lose the business or earn a very bad market reputation. Hence, the destiny, the future, the market potential and the business of all these 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, all these value chain are interlinked. They are somewhere linked in one system. They are not different from each other much. You know, all are somewhere linked with each other. These two make Dell successful, and Dell make these two other of its client and customer successful. And a lot is dependent on how Dell's entire value chain works, value system works. And well, Dell's value system works on the number 1 and number 2, these two suppliers value chain. Hence, value system. Hence, when all these 5 value systems are considered in a group, that is called value chain, value system. Because ultimately, Dell on its own cannot create a great value. Dell has to be dependent on the value system of the two suppliers. So that's the idea, that all these organizations are dependent on each other and they create a value system. So we are back here on value system. How an organization can use the value chain to secure competitive advantage? It can be done through, as we have seen, this can be done through a great linkage with each other, right? A great linkage which is established maybe in 5, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years after collaborative work of maybe half a decade or 1 decade. This also becomes so unique in terms of the organizational complexity that the competitors cannot even copy. It becomes very unique competency and it is inimitable. It cannot be copied. It cannot be replicated by other organizations. So the value system can be a source of great competitive advantage, because once you create the interdependency with your client, customer, suppliers, and you become part and parcel of the entire system as a whole, any new entrant cannot come and take away your business, because your supplier, your client and customers, everyone has become kind of a single organization. because of the value system and the way everything is interlinked. Hence, it can secure competitive advantage quite effectively. Invent new or better ways to do activity. Because value chain, if it works effectively, it works in collaboration, it works in a teamwork, it works in an innovative manner, and can find out new solutions regularly based on its own experience, on its learning curve. Combine activities in new or better ways. Again, new ways, better ways, so innovative ways. Manage the links in its own value chain. So the organization can establish good links in its own value chain amongst the secondary and primary activities, and manage the link in the value system. So find out, build the linkage, and maintain the link, and improvise with time. This is the best way to create a competitive advantage using value chain. However, if the value chain is used properly and integrated with the other organization's value chain, it's a supplier, vendor, and other stakeholders value chain, it will become completely unique and inimitable value system. Using the value chain in a competitive strategy. So there are two forms, example given, A and B. So first organization, form, infrastructure, human resource. So what are these? They are secondary activities. And here we have inbound operations, outbound marketing and service as the primary activity. Use of concessions, nil. So this entire portion is reflecting the cost part, how much cost the all the activities are going to take, and this narrow belt, this is reflecting the value created, because the customer, this is the value that organization exists for, because rest is a cost customer has paid already, but customer has also paid for this value which is created. If this value is not created, the organization will not sustain for long term. So in this example, we can see what are the inbound logistic for organization A, bulk warehousing, 1000 lines only, price point, basic store design. So it seems this is for some retail business, because see the checkout simple. So outbound logistic, it must have a checkout point. Dismissal for checkout error. So if there is any issue in the checkout, that is dismissed and sent back to the operation. De-skilled store operatives. So in the operation, there are some de-skilled store operative which is dealt with the human resource. Then computerized warehousing, that is a part of technology, and though it is a part of technology development, it also relates with inbound logistic. So it is showing a very unique link how inbound logistic, which is a primary activity, is linked to the secondary activity. Secondary activity means technology development. Technology development relates to inbound logistic, and we can see here computerized warehousing, that is a common point between technology and inbound logistic. Similarly, operations. So procurement has to ensure that best vendors at a low cost are selected, and that will impact operations as well. Similarly, dismissal for checkout error relates to human resource and outbound logistic. So finally, marketing and sales, those who need to tell about the product's quality and service efficiency, they relate to marketing and sales. And if you look at this index, we do not see a direct link for marketing and sales within secondary activity, which is where it is not necessary. And finally, when service is delivered, there are some concessions, and that relates to procurement department. So this way, this organization appears to be a retail firm, a retail business. Let's analyze the second organization as well. Again, we see secondary activity and primary activity. So inbound logistics says the goods are coming, operation is processing. Outbound logistics means the good is ready to send to customer, or it also means the services. Then marketing and sales are advertising for the goods and services, and service team is like a client service team, customer service team, call center, etc., which is represented by service team. Okay. So no quibble refunds means there's no debate while processing refunds. A great customer service, and it is part of primary activity only. Itemized bills. Who can provide this for client service team? Technology development. Now, marketing and sales, consumer research and taste, adverts in quality magazines. Wow. So in earlier organization, earlier example, in A, we did not have like secondary service, secondary department, secondary team taking part in the marketing and sales. Here we see that consumer and research, consumer research and taste is supported by technology development, which is part of marketing and sales. Again, the advertisement in quality magazines, which is part of marketing and sales, are also supported by procurement team. Earlier, we did not have this in the example A. Outbound logistic, if there is any issue in outbound logistic, flexible staff to help with packing. So human resource have solution here, and very proactive in providing the flexible staff, which will be good for outbound logistic. Client care training given by human resource team to improve operations, because operation will now and production will now understand what are the client concerns, and they will be more proactive to provide a good finished, good quality products. Recruitment of mature staff, that will relate to inbound logistic, how to bring the goods in the organization. That is also trained by human resource management. So human resource management is more flexible and more proactive here, more futuristic here in the example B. So it seems that this firm is again retail business and much more technologically competent, technologically efficient, much more futuristic. Their HR, their technology, all teams are working in a very good cohesion, in a good link, in a collaboration, and this seems far better organization. So now let's move and see what are the comments. The two supermarkets represented are based on the following. The value chain in A is similar to that of Lidl, a discount supermarket chain which sells on price. This can be seen in the limited product range and low cost sites. So the first value chain that we saw in example A, that is for cost focused, low cost based retail store, which is Lidl. Now the second one, it seems really premium one and quite customer focused and high tech organization. So the second one, the value chain in B, is based on Marks and Spencer, which seeks to differentiate on quality and services. Hence, the no quibble refunds and all the efficient technology in the service centricity. So Marks and Spencer gives a differentiated experience to its customer, a differentiated product, a quality product. Hence, it's a human resource, technology, its operations, service model, everything is much, much better and efficient, right? So just based on the two value chain, we can predict what kind of organization we are talking about. So the differences between the two different value chain in the example highlight the importance of business integration. Of course, more they are linked, more collaboration, more integration is there, the entire organization will create more values. So the value chain and performance management. The value chain has two critical implications for performance measurement, because this can highlight what are the key areas if we look at the value chain, we can find out the key area of improvement for client service, or we can find out key area of improvement to reduce wastage or create more value to reduce the turnaround time, right? So when it comes to performance measurement, how this can help us, we can find out, looking at the value chain, how the organization can improvise its services better. What are the key wastage? Where are the customers' concerns? Which organization or which team within the value chain can help the primary activity to deliver better service? And what are the metrics to use to assess whether the organization, all the teams are linked to each other? Which metrics to use to assess whether the operation team is working efficiently or infrastructure team is working efficiently? Which metrics can be used? So those details will be the tool to assess the performance, and it will help create the value by assessing the performance and the right performance. In order to assess how effectively it is performing, an organization needs to compare its performance against others. So for example, let's take an example. If our quality, if we think the quality of organization B in the value chain above is great, then we need to have a reliable measure as per the performance measurement policies or the techniques. So there are the concept of Six Sigma. So Sony, as a camera manufacturing company, if it thinks it is having great quality product, then it has to measure its success rate or the customer complaints vis-a-vis its competitors or the industry. Is Sony working on Six Sigma basis? Are there only 3 defects per million of camera manufactured? Can Sony or the Dell claim that they are operating at the quality of Six Sigma level? If not, then they need to find out where there is a break in the value chain system. So a comparative study with the competitors in the industry will be a good benchmark to understand where the organization stands in terms of the quality, service, and various other measures. Next, we can look at one question. This is a question from 2018 for March-June exam, and it covers one of the key aspects of value chain and value system. So let's look into that. So there is a question here. Let's highlight as we make the progress. Shivan Stores is a listed clothing retailer in B-land. We need to attempt the questions like this in a manner that as we make the progress and read the questions, we also highlight them at the key points. So Shivan Store is a listed clothing retailer in B-land. Its overall aim is to become the largest clothing retailer in B-land. So this is the goal. Shareholders it has recently dropped down the clothing retailer ranking from 4th to 5th largest. And shareholders have expressed concerns at the lack of dividend growth. Of course, if the business is dwindling down, there will be a reduction in the dividend at a time when spending in the B-land clothing market has been growing. So market is growing, but dividend is reducing. So shareholders are concerned here. What else we see? There has been a recent change of chief executive officer, and the new CEO has identified that the performance reporting at Shivan is not fit for the needs of the business. All right, so now possibly maybe the reason is performance reporting itself is not great. And because of that, there could be certain concerns. Let me just increase this size. So she has asked you to prepare a report to the board of directors to address the performance measurement and management issues which she sees as most important. Her plan is to achieve the overall aim by maximizing our opportunities from new technology and increasing our currently small web presence. She wants a detailed evaluation now. She wants a detailed evaluation of the current performance report, which is used by the board for its annual review of the business, Appendix 1. She wants this task split into two parts. First, evaluate the existing set of measures and their presentations. So basically, we need to quickly check Appendix 2 and 1 as we make the progress, because here it appears that advise on appropriate performance measure and systems for Shivan when using the value chain. So apparently this relates to Appendix 2. So we need to see what is the Appendix 2 here. Appendix 2 is the value chain. As we can see, 4 secondary activity and 5 primary activities, and then we have margin. So what do we derive? How can we find out the appropriate performance measures and system for Shivan when using the value chain approach? She wants this task split into two parts. First, evaluate the existing set of measures and their presentation, and then secondly, 3 new measures which you believe address key issue of the business but are not currently on the report. She has stated that the report does not need a commentary, as she and the finance director talk through the report in detail with the board. In an additional effort to drive improvement and gain competitive advantage for Shivan, the board has decided to use the value chain as a business integration tool. The CEO has provided a copy of the value chain diagram. She believes that further improvement in Shivan's performance can be achieved through simplification of the supply chain. That's a key word, supply chain. Let's note it down. The CEO believes that this has implications for the performance measurement and information systems at Shivan and wants a report to address this as well. So how we should cover this? So apparently we have noted down that supply chain has a problem that needs to be simplified. Also, information system needs to be reanalyzed. The CEO believes that this has implications for the performance measurement and information systems at Shivan and wants a report to address this as well. So basically, supply chain, if this is improvised, many things will be resolved. So what typically happens in any such value chain analysis, that we need to draw the diagram for our own ease. What is supply chain? Supply chain is basically inbound and outbound logistic. If inbound and outbound logistic is not working properly, then input which is coming to the factory and the ready-made products which are going outside to client or customer will not reach on time and it will start to lose the market shares. So what should be done? Somewhere at infra team and IT team need to work with inbound and outbound logistic team to improvise, update and integrate the supply chain internally, because there is a likely chance of missing the internal link of the supply chain. What else can be done? The second thing that can also be done is to create a value system with suppliers. Because if there is a good value chain created with the supplier, as we discussed with the example of Dell, a lot of problems of the inbound logistic can be solved. And finally, the organization needs to work with supplier and the logistic providers outside the organization, outside its own value chain, to understand what is causing the delay, inefficiency, or any challenges because of which the goods are not maybe packaged or sent on time to the end client and customers. So IT and infrastructure team need to create more linkages and collaboration with the inbound and outbound logistic team. Inbound and outbound logistic teams need to work with the external vendor or the supplier to create more value chain, and all this team needs to set their performance measure in a way the improvement can be measured. So the performance metrics should be changed and updated in order to measure the innovativeness, the collaboration between the teams, progress, advancement of the supply system, supply chain, or technologically upgrading the entire information system to help the logistic team. So the metrics of the performance should be set in a way that IT infrastructure team needs to work with inbound team. They need to improvise their system and upgrade that and make the entire logistic team more innovative. So this is the way we can use a value chain to answer such questions. This is a typical 7 marks question. So we need to spend basically 1.5 minute per question. So this 7 mark should be answered in 10 minutes time, right? Because if you need to answer 100 marks in 3 hours, in 180 minutes, we need to on average attempt to answer the question within 1.5 minutes. Because there will be some 25% time spent on reading and thinking as well. So once we start to write, we need to complete the answer of a 7 mark within 10 minutes. And we need to spend 2-3 minutes in reading. So this is the integration section of and how to integrate the models, how to integrate the value chain of any organization, basically to know performance management requirement. And this chapter, these models deals very well how to integrate the different component, different teams performance together, and how to come up with the right performance metrics to assess the integration. So these two models, value chain, value system, and the 7S is dedicated for this purpose. There are more models for in this chapter, and we will cover those ones in the next few sessions. And finally, we'll revise the chapter at the end of every week. Thank you so much for your time.